Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So what I'm going to be doing today is another trade recap. So today on YM it was super nice, and there's a lot of GxT framework which I want to show you. So what we can see, we have this higher time frame SMT, so we have a weekly SMT. So this is overall showing us that YM is the overall weakest right now. As we can see, NQ and ES makes that higher high on the weekly time frame. Now, how can we frame profiles intraday to this? So this is going to be the TGIF setup, where we can target back into the weekly range. So you see how we opened the week here. We just came into that weekly open, which is right also at 50% of this dealing range, right? So this is where I wanted to frame price today. I didn't catch like the whole move to this low, but I caught like 80% of the move basically. But overall, this is super good framework, and I'm going to explain why. So what we see at the open, we're basically opening high first. And what are we doing when we're opening high? We're tagging this daily swing high, right? And I'm gonna show you on the lower time frame why this is significant, why we should reverse of this high. And we can also see we're opening low, we're creating that open high, taking out that previous daily candle high with SMT. So the TGIF setup, right? Now, what I want you to look at there, okay, we have this swing high, right? We can see on NQ we trade past this high. And the reason why we trade past this high and we fail to reverse is for YM to catch up to take out that high. And this is when we actually start reversing, right? So overall, we can see that YM is the overall weakest asset on the higher time frame. And we're also going to see some strength switching going on the 4-hour and the 5-minute. So let's get right into it. So what we see right here, what we understand is that on the daily time frame, we have asset synchronization. We have a higher time frame SMT. We understand we're on a Friday, so generally speaking, that's where we want to cap that weekly range, making the wick of that weekly candle, right? Which we are doing right here. And that's where we can target back inside the range. So what we're creating right here is a 4-hour profile where we see that the opening price, we open high first. We're creating a 2 a.m. 4-hour profile here. Now 2 a.m. wasn't actually high of day here, right? 2 a.m. wasn't high of day, but 6 a.m. was. And that's where we have a SMT right here, which I'm going to explain. So at first, you can expect 6 a.m. to expand away if you find a profile within this. But overall, we can see that like with the overall price action here, there's like no profile. Right here, there was actually a really clean profile, which I was going to take, but I wasn't at home. So we had the SMT right here, as we can see with, you could trade at ES lower here, where we're basically forming this SMT. We're forming a protected high. So this is where you can actually frame 6 a.m. lower. Now, it didn't really expand, right? We didn't take out anything significant, but this is actually a place where I could have shorted. I would have probably taken partial and went break even here. But overall, that is actually a great place to actually frame a trade because we have all the criteria where we basically, if we mark out the open again here, we can see we're basically opening low first, where we're basically, opening high first, where we're basically making a daily wick. We're creating a protected high. So we have that hourly order block. We're retesting that hourly order block with SMT. So that's where you can frame 6 a.m. lower because now we're aligned, right? Because now for the 4-hour candle reversed. So that's when we can trade 6 a.m. lower. So this is a super valid trade to take. But I'm going to focus on the trade I took today, you know? So yeah, let's go into YM here. So when we came higher here and we're leaving failure swings here, we're just leaving liquidity open. That is a continuation signature, because why would we just trade lower to then come higher to then just reverse and continue higher, right? So this is where we want to look for a profile. So what we see right here is that we can mark out the sessions right here. Boom. So we can mark out the sessions, and we see that we basically make a new high of day on NQ. So we're coming back to that high of day, and we're creating that new daily wick, right? We're creating that high of day. So that is where we want to see like some sort of strength difference, where we can see that since NQ manipulated with this big wick, that is where we want to frame profiles on YM, right? Because if you look at the 4-hour wick, does this support expansion? Yes. Does this wick support expansion? Kind of, I guess, but not really, especially when we look at the fractal model here. You can technically trade 10 a.m. lower, but overall we can see that 930 expand on YM. So I didn't want to take NQ. Now, there was some profiles I could have taken on NQ, which I'm going to show you, but it didn't present itself, so I didn't. But let's go into this trade. So we can see we're making a new high of day on NQ, so we're making this SMT. On YM, we're tagging this gap right here, right? So we're holding this gap. We're forming this fractal model, which is more clear on the 30-minute, where we basically manipulate at 9 a.m. So when we already have an established high, this would be the only point if we're gonna reverse and come lower. Like we wouldn't need to come back up again. So that's where you can take a positional entry at 9:30 to actually catch the whole expansion, right? Now I entered pretty late here. I entered like 20 seconds after 9:30, which was pretty bad. Which I got a pretty bad feel here, but the overall narrative was super clear to me. But the positional entry here is super valid, right? So we can go into and look at this right here. So we understand we have a draw open. We opened high right here. So this we're basically, how can I call this, right? It's like if we're not gonna reverse here, right, when we had this SMT and we fail to take out this low, then we're obviously gonna reverse here. This is what would be the only point, and we're actually pairing the driver with it, right? So yeah, I actually framed to this low right here. We can see that this was like the most, oh sorry, I targeted this low right here. This was the most relevant target to me, because it's like this would be the low of this New York PM session. So this would be like that swing low of the session. So this is where I targeted, and then we can basically see we just kind of like started consolidating. We trade a bit lower to that weekly open right here, but then I just expect this New York PM session to consolidate. We don't need to go lower. We already expanded into targets. We're coming back into that weekly range. So this is basically where we're just gonna consolidate most likely. Now what we also see right here is that when we create this fractal model, we can see that 925, which is important to note, 925 manipulates. So that's where if 925 manipulates, then what can 930 do? Expand away, right? And since YMSL were weakest on the higher time frame and on the lower time frame, then obviously 930 should expand, right? And we get a retest. We just kind of like retrace within this candle. We tap this order block, and boom, we get a clean one-side expansion. This is where true expansions happen, guys. It's so good. Like this framework is so good. But yeah, that was overall the trade. I don't think there's anything more here. But overall, super clean trade. Yeah, I was actually gonna go over this as well. So I was actually gonna take a position on NQ as well, where we basically, you see how we failed to actually expand with YM, and that is where I demand like another SMT to trigger the expansion for NQ and ES. And we can see we're basically making a lower low here. But you see how we're just making equal highs on ES, which was, this threw me off a lot, right? Because if we took out this high, so let's say we did something like this, then I can actually frame NQ lower. I can enter off this change in state, and then I take entry, right? This would have been super valid, but when we just made equal highs, I was not willing to trade away from this personally. But yeah, overall, super one-sided today. That T-GIF setup where we're just capping that weekly range, coming back into that weekly range, right? So yeah, that's overall my framework behind the trade. Super nice trade. But yeah, that was overall it. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.